Simona, can you tell us what the situation is like in Mosul now that this complete victory over the Islamic State group's fighters there has been declared?
Well, victory has been declared, but fighting is very much ongoing. There is regular airstrikes, artillery, and heavy gunfire in the old city. I'm at the front line right now, and you might be able to hear some of the gunfire in the background. We have been with a unit that has been engaged with fighters from the IS group who are about 150 meters away. It seems that a group of fighters have holed themselves up in an enclave very close to the Tigris River, and that's where most of the fighting is taking place right now. So the Iraqi army is using tanks, they're using machine guns to try to mop up the remaining fighters who remain in the city. Just how many they are is really difficult to say. According to one source in the Iraqi army, a commander, he said that there could still be over 1,000 fighters here, but that is just one source and is not confirmed. But it's really difficult to know because we have a lot of tunnels here. It's impossible to separate the civilians from the IS fighters. But the bottom line is that victory may have been declared yesterday, but there is definitely still a lot of operations going on here.
I think many people listening to you, Simona, might wonder why Haider al-Abadi then declared victory in such grand style in Mosul on Monday, if so many fighters do still remain. Is it the sense among the Iraqi army that it's just a matter of time for them before they do get rid of these remaining fighters?
Indeed. I mean, the Iraqi army is definitely on the brink of victory here in Mosul. There is no doubt about it. They control the vast majority of the old city. We're really just talking about a tiny sliver of land here on the Tigris. And, they've really been, now you can hear some of the airstrikes in the background again. They've really been waiting to make this announcement for a really long time because it's been a really long battle. They want to rally support for the troops. They really want to, be able to claim that they have recaptured the second largest city in Iraq from the grip of the IS group. So it's important. It's a very symbolic moment. It's important for the motivation of the troops and for the Iraqi people, but certainly it's a very difficult operation. It's really extremely hard in this densely populated urban area and these small little streets to really make sure that all of the IS fighters are driven out. And I just want to reiterate just how many there are is really difficult to know. The estimates have been ranging very widely between a few dozens, a few hundreds, and like I said earlier, one source even said that there could be still over 1,000, but that's just really difficult to know because of the terrain, because there's a very little knowledge about, how many are in these tunnels. So definitely victory is very near, but it's not quite finished yet.
And Simona, what about Mosul's residents? As you said, this is or was Iraq's second biggest city. And we know that many thousands of people spent many, many weeks trapped by the warfare in their home city.
Yeah, so some civilians are still emerging from the city. We haven't seen any today, but there was quite a lot of movement yesterday still coming out of the old city. The part where I am, I mean, there is just nothing left. All the houses are pretty much reduced to rubble, and you can see in some of the more outer parts of western Mosul, and definitely in East Mosul, that life seems to be getting back to normal, but this part of the city is completely empty. You don't see any civilians here, and the ones who are remaining, again, the numbers are unknown, but many people here say that those who remain are actually families of the ISIS fighters, that they're not actually civilians, that they kind of consider them almost one and the same right now because we've seen a lot of suicide attacks carried out by women and sometimes even children. So it's really, the army is aware that it has to really make sure that it doesn't target civilians without a reason, but making that separation at this point in battle is extremely difficult.
Indeed, just one final question. We know that Iraq has suffered for well over a decade from sectarian conflict, sectarian bloodshed. There in Mosul, with all this suspicion, in terms of the people who might want to be coming back into the city, has the Iraqi authorities told you about any provisions they might be making to try and rebuild this city in terms of its community?
There's very little concrete planned on this. Of course, it's a monumentous task, and The UN has announced that $1 billion will be needed to restore some of the basic infrastructure. Right now, I'm looking at one of the bridges that have been destroyed in airstrikes. So actually, it's even very difficult to even cross the river right now. There's only one bridge. So rebuilding the bridges, rebuilding public infrastructure, but also the private homes will cost a lot of money. So that's just the physical part. And then, of course, you have the social aspect as well. How are you going to manage the return of this population? How are you going to manage the suspicion between people who accuse themselves of being supporters of the IS groups and those who are not? Also, still there are a lot of tensions between the Sunni population and the Shiite government. So you have all of this. You have all of this. That's outgoing fire, by the way. You have all of this playing in, which means that the reconstruction of Mosul will be extremely difficult.